What if I told you there's a homemade mix that can double, even triple your tomato harvest this season? No expensive fertilizer, no garden store. Just 3 ingredients already sitting in your kitchen: dry yeast, blackstrap molasses, and cultured buttermilk. $2 per batch. But here's what nobody tells you. Most people who try this formula get nothing. Why? Because the secret isn't what you mix, it's the exact ratio. One wrong step, and your plants ignore it completely. In the next 8 minutes, I'll show you the corrected recipe, based on what research tells us about soil life and root health, so your tomatoes finally grow heavy with fruit. Here is something most gardeners never learn. Your tomato plants do not eat the soil directly. They depend on billions of tiny helpers living around their roots: good bacteria, beneficial fungi, and natural yeasts. These tiny helpers do something amazing. They unlock the nutrients already trapped in your soil and turn them into food the roots can actually absorb. When these helpers are strong and active, your tomato plants grow thick stems, deep green leaves, and plenty of flowers. When they are weak or missing, no amount of fertilizer makes a difference. The plant simply cannot use what you give it. Recent agricultural research has confirmed this. The real secret to a heavy tomato harvest is not more fertilizer, it is feeding the right helpers around the roots. And that is exactly what this $2 mix does. So what feeds these tiny helpers around your tomato roots? 3 simple ingredients. Let me walk you through each one. The first ingredient is active dry yeast. Yes, the same yeast you use to make bread. It is one of nature's most powerful root helpers. When you add a small amount to your soil, the yeast releases B vitamins, natural growth boosters, and enzymes that wake up the good bacteria around the roots. Recent research has studied yeast as a plant booster, with promising results. But here is the catch: most people use way too much. The correct amount is just 1 teaspoon per gallon of water, not a tablespoon. 1 tiny teaspoon. A small packet of yeast from the grocery store costs about $1.50, but you only use a pinch each time. That comes out to roughly 50 cents per batch. The second ingredient is unsulfured blackstrap molasses. Think of this as food for the helpers. Blackstrap molasses is loaded with iron, calcium, magnesium, and potassium minerals you simply cannot find in white sugar or honey. It gives the good bacteria the energy they need to multiply. But pay close attention here. The label must say unsulfured. The cheaper sulfured kind contains a preservative that actually kills the helpers we are trying to feed. A jar lasts months and costs about $5, total roughly 80 cents per batch. The third ingredient is cultured buttermilk. This is where the magic of fermentation comes in. Cultured buttermilk carries live, beneficial bacteria that support the root zone in ways recent studies are still discovering. Important note, it must say cultured on the carton. Powdered buttermilk or homemade vinegar milk will not work. They simply do not have the living helpers we need. A quart costs around $4, about 70 cents per batch. Add those up. 50 cents, 80 cents, 70 cents. That is your $2 batch. Now, let me show you exactly how to mix it. Follow this carefully, the order matters. You will need 1 gallon of clean, warm water. Not hot, not cold. It should feel warm on your wrist, not hot, around 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit if you have a thermometer. If you use tap water, let it sit out overnight first to remove the chlorine. Chlorine kills the helpers before they can even start working. Step 1. Pour 2 tablespoons of unsulfured blackstrap molasses into the warm water. Stir until it dissolves completely. The water should turn a rich, dark brown. Step 2. Sprinkle 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast across the surface. Do not stir. Just let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes. You will see tiny bubbles forming on top. That means the yeast is alive and active. If you see nothing after 20 minutes, your yeast is dead. Throw it out and start with a fresh packet. Step 3. Slowly pour in 1½ cups of cultured buttermilk. Stir gently in one direction for 30 seconds. That is it. Your mix is ready. One critical warning: use it the same day you make it. Do not seal the container tightly, and do not save it for the next day. After a few hours, the yeast produces alcohol that can actually damage your tomato roots. Now, here is where most people go wrong. Mixing the formula correctly is only half the battle. How you use it decides whether your tomatoes respond. First, when to use it. Wait until your tomato plant is at least 4 weeks old, with a strong stem and several true leaves. Never use this on tiny seedlings, their roots are too delicate. The best time to start is when the plant begins flowering. That is when it craves nutrients the most. Second, how much to give. 1 full cup per mature plant. Half a cup for younger plants. 1 gallon of this mix is enough for 12 to 15 tomato plants. That is why the cost stays around $2. Third, how often? Every 2 to 3 weeks, not more. This is the mistake I see everywhere. People pour it on twice a week thinking more is better. It is not. Too much, and the helpers grow out of balance. Fourth, when in the day. Early morning or late afternoon. Never in the hot midday sun. Before you pour, lightly water the soil with plain water so the roots are not shocked. Finally, where to pour. Around the base of the plant, about 4 inches from the stem. Never on the leaves, never on the stem, just the soil around the roots. So, what should you expect after using this mix? Here is the honest timeline. After 7 to 10 days, your tomato leaves turn a deeper, richer green. The soil around the roots feels softer when you touch it. That means the helpers are working. After 2 to 3 weeks, the stems thicken. New side branches appear. You will see more flowers forming at the top of the plant. After 4 to 6 weeks, fruit set increases noticeably. The plant starts to grow heavy with tomatoes. But I want to be honest with you. This mix is not a miracle. It will not save a tomato plant starved of sunlight, water, or pollination. What it does is support the root zone exactly when your plant needs help the most. If after 3 weeks you see no change, check 4 things. Did you remove the chlorine from your water? Is your yeast still fresh? Did you use real cultured buttermilk? And is your soil getting enough moisture? Fix any of these, and the helpers will do their work. Here is the truth about this $2 mix. It is not magic. It works because it respects how nature built the soil and the roots millions of tiny helpers feeding your plants the way it has always been done. Try it for 1 full month. Watch your leaves turn greener after the first week. Notice the stems thicken by week 3, and by week 6, you will understand exactly why your tomato plants were craving this all along. If this helped you, save the recipe for later and share it with someone in your garden circle. In the next video, I will show you how to use this same mix for peppers, cucumbers, and other fruiting plants in your garden. See you there.